talking about was how my lives are going to be a little bit different from Anissa's, whereas she read a book and we talked about the book a little bit. I recommend that we watch different TV shows, movies, documentaries during the week, and then at the end of the week, we meet here on YouTube Live and we discuss things. So, the show that I had asked for us to talk about is called Alexa and Katie. It's on Netflix. Um, Even if you don't have Netflix, I know a lot of people just use other people's passwords, whatever. But if you're able to watch it, it's a really good show. So, and we'll be talking about it today. So it's 2:03. I'm gonna give it another few minutes. But yes. Has anybody here seen it or had a chance to see it based on who is in the chat right now? Or even heard of it? Any, what do you think it's about? Anything like that? Any sort of prior knowledge or estimations on what you think the show is about? Yeah. I was looking for TV shows and movies that would be suitable for us to talk about. And I've always seen it on Netflix, and I thought it was like, but then I actually watched the trailer, and it's pretty interesting. It's a little cheesy, but it's actually a good show. I really like it. So, yes. So, just a couple more minutes. You have told me a lot about it, and it seems like a great show. Yes, I actually really like the show. I think I can't wait to talk about it. Yes, awesome. It's exciting. Exciting stuff. It's a pretty good show. And it's not only going to be this show. I have a few cool movies, probably movies that you may have already seen, but just to rewatch it more actively and note for some things like Incredibles 2. There's this cool docu-series I found on Netflix. A lot of things are actually really cool to watch on Netflix. They're just not always the most popular ones, so they don't pop up right away. But if you really dig deep, you can find some cool stuff to watch on Netflix rather than just Riverdale or whatever. I love a good sitcom. Yes, it is your like quintessential cheesy sitcom. Yes. So, it's 2:05. So I'm gonna just start talking about it a little bit. And if anybody has any questions or needs clarification on anything, just drop a comment in the chat box. But let me just formally introduce myself. I'm Lyric. I am a program facilitator at the Mariposa Center for Girls Inc. of the Valley. If any not Girls Inc. people are watching this, hello, and I hope you can stick around. We're going to be talking about a show on Netflix called Alexa and Katie. I started watching it recently. One of the things that I really like about it is that it focuses on strong female friendships. And I feel like, especially at least for me, when I was younger, I had a lot of trouble figuring out what I want in a friend and what does it mean to be a good friend to others and for people to be a good friend to you. So I think that this show talks about it in a way that's funny and relatable, and you almost don't even realize that you're thinking about that stuff until you start asking yourself questions and talking about it to other people. And then you realize, oh, hey, that's a trait that I look for in a friend. So, yes. So basically, if you're able to watch the first episode, just a regular pilot, that's what we're going to be talking about. So a little bit of context. Alexa and Katie, it's a show on Netflix. It's about two best friends, high school age friends. They're entering high school, so they're probably about 14 or 15. And Alexa, one of them, has cancer. And it talks about her cancer and it talks about her being sick in a way that is not super scary, but also realistic because it shows that a person can have something and a person can be sick and be more than their sickness, right? There's so many other things that we get to know about Alexa and things that we get to focus on besides her just being sick. So, yes. And then Katie is her best friend. They've been lifelong best friends, and now they're about to start their journey entering high school together. So, I was in high school not too long ago, and some people may have been out of high school for a while. Some people aren't in high school yet, but yeah, they seem to be pretty nervous about it. When I was entering high school, I was also nervous. If anybody has been in high school and want to just drop a comment about their experience, like what is one word that comes up in your head when you think about high school, whether it be graduation or trouble or fun or rewarding. I would say when I think about my experience in high school, the first word that pops up in my head would probably be it would probably be friendship. I feel like for me, um, friendship was something that I really realize is super duper important. And I know that when we're younger, growing up in the media, obviously we talk about family and how important family is. And there's this emphasis on relationships and love. But I also think that it's really important to have a good group of friends or even a good best friend when you're in high school and just like in life in general. Exploration, I learned a lot about myself. Yeah, yeah, for sure. For sure. That is cool. Yeah, I would say friendship was a big thing for me. So, what I like to do when I think about high school, it makes me think of finding my people. I have a close circle of friends from high school. Yes, finding your people. I love that. I relate to that. I think after 4 years of joining different clubs, trying a sport, I was in chorus in high school. I think that's where I made most of my friends from. And even like my parents, they have friends from high school. I think that's when you really start to realize what a true friend is, and that's when you see the people start to stick around. So yeah. So I like to take notes when I'm watching something or reading something in a more active way. And what does it mean to watch something or listen to something actively? There's a difference between hearing a video, there's a difference between hearing something and listening, right? So you may watch something and you just watch it, it's entertaining, it's informational, it's whatever. But then to watch it again or to go back and watch it more actively and ask yourself questions helps you understand things a lot better. I think of maturity, believe it or not. I learned a lot about myself in high school. Yeah. So, some things that I just want to note when I was watching this and some of the other things that we're going to talk about in the future, what makes a good story, and even if you're watching it on TV or if it's a movie, whether it's a book or a play, it's all a story, right? So, what are the elements, the key elements to a story? To me, every good story has to have characters, setting, plot, a conflict, and a resolution. So, I'm going to go through those things really quickly just in case you don't know what those words mean. So, for instance, character. So, a character are the individuals in the story that the story is about. So, in our show, Alexa and Katie, we have Alexa, who's like kind of the main character. I would say Alexa and Katie are both main characters, but it focuses a little bit more on Alexa. So, I would say that they're definitely the main characters. We have Dave, who's Alexa's dad. We have Katie's mom, Alexa's older brother, Lucas, that Katie has a crush on. We have Katie's little brother, and Gwenny, who is their rival of sorts, a nemesis of sorts. Different types of characters. You have a protagonist who is always like your good guy or like the hero. in a story. So I think our protagonist in this show is definitely going to be Alexa and Katie. And on the opposite of that, you have an antagonist who is kind of the bad guy. Like in a story, you don't want to see the antagonist win. They're usually having some sort of conflict with the protagonist. And Gwenny is definitely an antagonist for Alexa and Katie. So, for all of those people who talked about what high school was like for them, did you have any antagonists or nemesis or arch rivals or anything like that? What was that like? I would say in middle school, it was definitely a lot harder for me. There were definitely people that I didn't get along with, and I didn't really know how to talk to or resolve conflict with. I think I got a lot better with that in high school. In high school, I kind of realized these are the people that I need to be around because they make me happy and I make them happy. And anyone else, I don't really need to talk to them if I don't have to. But yes, Gwenny is definitely the antagonist. Middle school, definitely, Anissa says. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, and that goes into the maturity piece too, Anissa. You know, we mature a lot more in high school, so those things aren't taken as seriously. Jess says, not so much a rival, but there was a girl who played the same position in softball as me. She pushed me to be better. Yeah, yeah. Oh, hey, Joanna, what's going on? Love this. Thank you for watching. Yeah, you know, I think in my senior year of high school, so my last year of high school, I decided to try a new sport. I had never really played any sports before. I did cheer when I was younger, but I did track my senior year, and there was another person on my team for track who was definitely the best out of us. And she definitely encouraged all of us to be better. It was only my first year, so I didn't really have much to say in terms of wanting to beat the best person on the team. But yeah, it's kind of tough when you're comparing yourself to other people. I had to learn to let go of friends. I came back from Pakistan and missed out on middle school here, and everyone already made their clicks. Clicks, right. So cliques, if you're not aware, it's just a term for a group of people. So, like when we talk about finding our people in school or wherever, you definitely have cliques. And it's usually people who have the same interest in something. So, for example, I was in chorus in high school. So me and all of my friends were the chorus kids. Or you have the band kids, you have the kids that play sports. And even within sports, there's football and the soccer team. They're all kind of staying together. And it's a good thing to find your people, but where you kind of draw the line of I'm only around people that are interested in the same thing as me, that's where it kind of gets clicky, and then you get to excluding people, which is also not cool. But yes, going back to the show, we don't see too much clickiness in the show. I think it really just focuses on Alexa and Katie navigating their friendship within each other and their friendships with other people. So yeah, so those are our characters. Wow. Okay, so the setting. A setting in a story is where it takes place and when it takes place. For our show, it is in modern times. So as if this was a real show, they would be right here with us in time. It doesn't give any reference to where specifically they're located, but if I were to guess, I would probably say somewhere on the East Coast, maybe like New York-ish, like upstate New York. So yes, setting, very important in a story. The plot of any story is the actual story, the narrative on which the entire book, TV show, movie is based. So a good plot and a good story should always have a beginning, middle, then like a climax in the middle where the big problem gets solved and all that stuff, and then the end where it kind of trickles down after that, right? So, yes. Right now we're in the very, very beginning of our series. So as it continues, we can look further in depth at the plot. And then conflict. Every story has a conflict to solve. And what does conflict mean? Conflict is simply just problem or issue or maybe an obstacle in the character's way, right? So I would say that there are several small conflicts in the show, but the overall overarching conflict would be between Alexa and her sickness and her cancer. And that has an umbrella effect over all of her other conflicts, can be linked back to that. So that's definitely the first conflict that I saw watching the first episode. And then lastly, the resolution. So the resolution has the word solution in it, right? The solution to a problem is the way that an action or conflict is resolved. So for the series, we're only in the first episode, so it wouldn't be a super good story if we're introduced to a problem, the big problem of the whole show, and then it got solved in one episode, right? It's like, where do you go from here? So yeah, we're gonna have to keep watching and figure out what the resolution is. I believe the show has 3 seasons, so definitely a lot to tune into. So, talking about the very first episode, now that we know what the essential elements of every story should have: characters, setting, plot, a conflict, and a resolution. Excuse me. So, what happens in the first episode? So, has anybody had the chance to watch it and want to talk about what they saw? I don't want to take away if somebody has something to say, but I'll keep an eye on the comments as I talk about it. So, in the first episode, we're obviously introduced to the characters. We learn that Alexa has cancer, and because she does, there are certain things that she can't do. So, for example, in the first episode, we start off with Alexa and Katie in a coffee shop, and you think it's just okay, they're in a coffee shop, they're getting coffee after school, it's whatever. Until they get home and Alexa's mom finds out they're at the coffee shop. And Alexa kind of gets in trouble for that because she's not supposed to get too tired, right? So, one of the side effects from her having cancer is that she gets tired very easily. So, it's a lot more difficult for her to do more than what she has to do. And when you're entering high school, obviously there's so many things. There's clubs, there's sports, there's your regular schoolwork, there's balancing your social life and stuff like that. So Alexa is worried that she's not going to be able to try out for the basketball team because that's something that's going to tire her out. She won't be able to hang out with her friends as much because that's something that's going to tire her out. And we notice in the show that her mother is super duper protective of her, and she calls her mother Smother because her mom is just always on her about everything. But it comes from a place of care and love. So yes, I already talked about this before, but they're entering high school, so they're currently in 8th grade, and school is going to be starting in like a week in the first episode. So they're definitely nervous about that. They're thinking of what they're going to wear, typical first day of school things that most people would think about entering their freshman year of high school. But then we go to a scene in the show where Alexa is brushing her hair and her hair starts to fall out a little bit. And that's something that worries her and that concerns her. And her hair does fall out because the medicine that she takes to fight her cancer, if you don't know what it's called chemotherapy. And one of the side effects of chemotherapy is that it causes you to lose your hair. So there's kind of a misconception. A lot of people think that cancer is the thing that makes your hair fall out. Not necessarily. It's the chemotherapy and it's a side effect or something that happens because you're taking the chemotherapy. So for her, it was her hair falling out. And to think we place such an emphasis on hair in a lot of cultures and several cultures. I know that my hair is something that's very significant to me. It's a form of expression. I dye my hair blue on this side, purple on this side. I wear it curly, I wear it straight, I put it in buns, I wear it out. Like, hair is a big thing for me. So I don't know. How do you guys feel about hair? What would you do if you were in that situation? What would you be thinking? Anissa says, image was huge to me as a high schooler. This must have been tough for her. Yeah, and we see it in the show. She's definitely stressed out and nervous about it. So you're already having these worries of entering high school, being freshman, bottom of the totem pole, and then adding this cancer aspect to it, you know, everyone's already going to be looking at me because I'm new, right? And now I have this and my hair is falling out. And but she doesn't tell anybody about it at first. So it goes to that scene, then it kind of cuts out, and then Alexa and checking for any more comments. I would be so scared. My hair is such a part of, yeah. And like another thing about hair, it's pretty significant to us in our identity. It's one of the first things that we see, you know, if we're getting dressed up for something, if we want to look good, we usually do our hair in some sort of way. So we can definitely, at least I can definitely empathize with Alexa and how she would be feeling in terms of losing her hair right before going into high school, because it's easy to say, oh, it's just hair, cut it and it grows back. But for me personally, if I was in her shoes, I would be very, very scared. So, yes. So, her and Katie in the next part of the scene, they decide to TP or toilet paper, like put toilet paper on someone's house, just any person's house, right? So, obviously, that's not a super cool, smart thing to do. I don't recommend doing that, but they do it in the show. And so they're putting toilet paper all over the place in this person's yard and this person's house. And obviously, this person is like, hey, what's going on? And turns on the lights and sees Alexa and Katie in the front yard. And Katie, who's Alexa's best friend, is saying, oh, we have to get out of here. We don't want to get caught. And Alexa is ignoring her, which is what came off to me as kind of interesting, a little bit weird, because if I were to do something like that, I wouldn't want to be caught. So if my friend is telling me, hey, we have to go, I would go, but she doesn't. She stays and she kind of makes Katie stay too. And then we find out that the person who owns the house that now has toilet paper all over it is Principal Trugley, who is the new principal of the school that they're going to be entering in less than a few days. So it's high school hasn't even started yet, and they're already in trouble for TPing or putting toilet paper all over their principal's house. So, yes. So as a result of that, they get suspended. And, you know, Katie is devastated. She's like, we're going to miss the first day of school. Like, we've been talking about this for so long. And now we're suspended. Now we can't go. And then it is revealed that later, Alexa stayed on purpose. And Alexa wanted to, yeah, oh no, right? Alexa wanted to purposely get suspended so that she would not have to go to school. LOL. Yeah, it was really funny to watch. So Alexa wanted to get suspended on purpose. And I want to ask why. I know maybe you guys haven't seen the show, but I just want to take a second to have you guys kind of think about why she would want to be suspended from school on purpose. Why do you think she would go out of her way to get in trouble? Not only get herself in trouble, but get her best friend in trouble so that she wouldn't have to go to school. I'm just going to take a moment, have you guys think about that, and I'll be watching the chat box. Jess says nervous, scared to start something new. Yep, that might be a reason why she would do that. She may be scared to start school, says Anna. Yeah. So it looks like we're kind of all thinking the same thing. So, yes, I'm just going to have a little bit of water. Don't worry, my straw is compostable. Anissa says she was scared to go with her sickness in her hair. She was probably feeling scared and defeated and felt this was a way to not face this fear. Right. Okay, so I think you guys are all onto it. I definitely get the sense that she was nervous about starting school, especially with her hair falling out. And she says in the show that she doesn't want to be known as the sick girl, right? She doesn't want anybody to treat her any differently because of the fact that she has cancer. So, yes, And I think in a lot of situations, if I know personally, if we get scared, if we get nervous about something, a lot of ways that people deal with that is by running away from the problem and avoiding the problem. So if you get nervous or scared about something, how do you deal with it? Do you try to face it head on? Do you kind of avoid it? Like, what is your strategy for navigating any sort of stressful situation? And I'll just keep an eye on the chat box. For me personally, if I'm in a stressful situation, um, me personally, I'm a very emotional person. So, in situations of high pressure and stress, something that makes me feel better is to look at it logically and focus on what I know and what needs to be done for the situation to be resolved. So, that's something that helps me a lot. I didn't always used to feel that way about how to solve problems. When I was younger, I would just kind of let my emotions take over, but now as I get older, I have a different way of facing it. Anna says, I talk to a trusted person about the problem. My mom, best friend, roommate. Jess says, I need to take a step back in situations of high stress. Taking time to myself helps me process. Super valid. Anissa says, I read. As odd as that sounds, reading focuses me enough to calm down and think critically about what I'm doing. Thinking critically. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's something that I try to do. I try to go over it in my head. If I take myself out of and look at the situation from a different perspective, what do I know? What needs to get done is how I would look at it. But for Alexa, she was faced with a high pressure, nervous situation, and she decided to kind of avoid it and put it off. And, Jess said that she likes to take a step back in situations of high stress, and that's super valid. But for this situation in particular, with purposely getting suspended and her best friend suspended so that she wouldn't have to go to school, why do you think that might not be the best way to resolve this situation? I don't think I don't think that was the best way to resolve the situation. That was probably the first thing that she thought of that might help her prolong this, but I don't think what else could she have done? What was a better way for her to solve this problem, right? I apologize. My chair is kind of squeaky. But yeah, obviously, just as Anna said, she does talk to someone. Right. So Alexa could have talked to, sorry, Alexa could have talked to her mom. She could have talked to Katie about it. Hello, best friend, you know, her dad, her brother, another trusted adult, a teacher, a coach, right? About how she was feeling. Because obviously, sometimes getting away from a situation can be helpful, but in a situation such as school, you can't put that off forever. Like, eventually, she was going to have to go to school and face her problem. So, going back to that, Katie is actually really, really upset at Alexa at this point. She was looking forward to her first day of school, and now that has been something that has been taken away from her. Anna says, remember, you are not alone. I love that. Yes. So, yeah. So, in this situation, Katie is very upset and she kind of decides to take some space, cool off, cool down from Alexa. Sorry, 1 second. Technical difficulties. Um, so yes. And Katie kind of avoids her, doesn't really talk to her, and then Alexa sneaks into her house, climbs in through her window, and says, "Hey, what's going on? Talk to me." And how do you think Katie might be feeling in this moment? She's definitely super upset, doesn't want to talk to someone. to have to think about how does it feel to not want to talk to someone and they're kind of insistent about it anyway and pushing on you, right? That kind of makes you not want to talk to them. So Katie is still upset for a bit, as any person would be if she was excited about going to school for the first or high school for the first time, and that's kind of been taken away from her, especially by her best friend. That would make anybody upset. But we see them talking about it, and Alexa explains to Katie that her hair started falling out and that she did not want to be known as the sick girl. She didn't want everybody to treat her differently. And she just wanted to not go to school for a bit. And they talk it out. And one thing that I like to note about the incident is that these are best friends, right? And obviously, even though Katie was upset, when they were talking, they didn't scream at each other, they didn't hit each other, they weren't calling each other names. They were just saying, hey, this is how I feel about something. I don't like how you handled this. I wish you would have talked to me about this. And that's what Katie said to Alexa. I wish you would have told me how you were feeling. I'm your best friend. That's what I'm here for. And I think that's something that not everybody has the capacity to do at such a young age. You have to remember that these girls are 14, 15 years old. And there's kind of a reputation that middle and high school age girls get of being catty and being gossipy. But that's only like a reputation, right? So I feel like that's why this show is super important, because to be able to watch two friends resolve their conflict with each other in such a way that reduces harm and doesn't hurt people, it's very important to watch. And I think, at least in my experience, my arguments with my friends when I was that age did not go as smoothly. How about you guys? Can you want to think about or talk about a time where you got into an argument with someone and it didn't go super well, versus maybe a time that you got into an argument with one of your friends and it did go well? What was different, you know? And I'll just take a sip of water. Compostable straw. Do not be afraid. Yes. For me, I actually have my best friend. Her name is Lexi, but her real name is Alexa, and so that's kind of funny. When we were younger, when we were in middle school, we even though we were best friends and we just stuck to each other like glue, we fought all the time in really unhealthy ways, just yelling and screaming and calling each other names. And, that would end up hurting my feelings. It would end up hurting her feelings. And it wasn't a super productive way to resolve the issue. I think remembering you and your friend are coming from a place of love helps to not take things personally in an argument. That's a great point, Jess. And I think, at least in my situation, in my experience, what has changed over time is that obviously we've matured, we've gotten older. But I think one of the things that has helped us the most is to kind of take a step back from the feelings aspect of it and just be honest. Honesty and trust and communication are three things that are super important in any relationship. And when I say relationship, that's any person that you have some sort of connection to. So, friendships, that's a relationship. Relationship with your family, how you communicate with your family, that's a relationship. Your coworkers, your classmates, your peers, you know, not a specific time, Anissa says, this is Anissa's comment, but it took a while for me to understand that you cannot always solve issues with yelling and anger. Talking, understanding, and love helps. That's a big thing. That's definitely a big thing. It's easy for us, especially when we're upset about something, to resort to that. But I think that, Anna says, I think it's important to remember that everyone has feelings and how we speak to each other is super important. This is all super great stuff. And Joanna says, yes, so true, Lyric. Thank you, Joanna. So I think if you have a chance to watch the show and kind of see more what I mean when I say, how they were talking to each other. And yeah, yeah. I think what has changed for me in terms of my friendships and how I resolve conflicts with people is that as I've gotten older, I've realized that there are different ways to express yourself, and just tapping into those ways because I can be upset or frustrated or sad about something. And, sometimes the first way that I go to express that feeling is not the most productive way. So, for example, I'm a very emotional person, like I said. So, whenever I get upset, even if I'm super duper angry and I'm not sad at all, I start crying. That's a way that I express my feelings. Some people express their feelings with, yelling, but those aren't healthy ways to express your feelings. So, tapping into what might be a healthy way. And when I say a healthy way to express your feelings, I'm talking about saying how you feel or expressing how you feel, excuse me, in a way that you're not hurting yourself and you're not hurting other people. So, what are some ways that you guys or you folks express how you are feeling? For me, I like to just talk. Sometimes I'll record a really long voice message just talking about how I feel, but then I won't send it to anybody. And I'll just listen back to it and then I'll just delete it, before I go to talk to that person about something. Or, sometimes expression isn't just verbal, right? There are a lot of ways that we express our feelings. So, for some of you guys, what is that for y'all? As I take another sip of water from my compostable straw. Watching the chat box. Going back to talking, understanding, and love. And that's what we see in the show. So this is by the end of the episode. The episodes are only like 20 minutes. There'd usually be 30 minutes, but there's no commercials on Netflix. Anna says, I like to take a break and think about how I am feeling. Then I like to vent to a trusted person and figure out how I'm going to address the problem. Anissa says, oh, that's very good, by the way, Anna. Anissa says, I write it down before I say anything. Then I step away and come back. I usually find that the things I say while I'm angry, I don't mean, and I change my writing to have better conversations. Right. A cool off period can be so important. And that's what Katie did in the show. She was upset that her best friend got her suspended and, didn't even tell her why, didn't even talk to her about how she was feeling. And what she could have done was just, kind of blow up on her and scream. But Katie took a minute, or not a minute, but she took some time to cool down and think about it to herself. And in the show, we see her in her room, kind of, just fiddling around with her hands or hugging a pillow and just kind of sitting to herself for a bit. And sometimes that's what we need in order to come back and reassess the situation. And in the show for Katie, it works really well for her. So, yeah. So now this is the end of the episode. They have talked it out, and Katie's like, I wish you would have told me how you were feeling. And Alexa reveals to Katie that her hair has been falling out. And what a lot of people choose to do if they are undergoing chemotherapy and they begin to lose their hair, rather than trying to just keep it in patches or whatever, they just decide to just go for it and just shave it all off before it falls off. And that's what we see Alexa do. She's kind of like questioning for a little bit, but then she says, you know what? I would rather just shave it all off than have to see it fall out, right? That might be more of a stressful thing to watch. So at the end of the episode, she decides to shave her head. And we also see that Katie, even though Katie does not have cancer and is not going through chemotherapy, she decides to shave her head also in a act of solidarity. So what does solidarity mean? Like, what does it mean to you? To me, the definition I would say of solidarity is to sort of stand with someone and show your support for someone in a very, yes, solidarity, in a very explicit, like a very like bold, straight up way is what I mean when I say explicit. So yeah, a statement, making a statement, I would say solidarity has a connotation of being very bold. You know, it's kind of difficult to show solidarity in a very shy way, at least to me. But yes, so Katie decides to shave her head. So, if you had a best friend who was going through chemotherapy, going through cancer, and was stressed out about their hair falling out, do you think that's something you would do to show solidarity, or would you show it in a different way? For me, whew, for me, I have such significant ties to my hair. It would be a very difficult thing for me to do, and because my hair means a lot to me. But if I know hair means a lot to that person too, um, depending on the situation, I think I would do it for the person to show. This is how much it means to me, and I'm willing to take it all off, take all my hair off for you. So that's 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 love. That's a really strong way to show love and solidarity and standing with someone. And in the show, we actually see that Alexa's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I'm bald. Like, there's no hair anymore. And Katie does the same thing. And it's like, and this time, Alexa doesn't ask her to do that. Katie just does it out of the kindness of her heart. And she says, you know, why? Like, why would you do something like that? And Katie says, you know, now you won't be the only person that they're looking at, you know? So it's not just you who's being alienated. It's not just you who's being kind of pointed out, right? So that's a very, very, very bold statement to make in support of your friend. And that is kind of where we leave off on the last episode. So, yes. So now we started with two of them, full head of hair, ready to enter high school, and we end with them now being suspended from high school and bald. So sounds kind of crazy, but definitely check out the show and for more context. And I think that if you join me back next week, on top of checking out the first episode, if you'd like, definitely check out episode 2 because that's what we're going to be discussing next week. It gets a lot crazier. So, yes. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who watched, whether you commented or whether you were just kind of watching, checking things out. I hope that you are encouraged to watch the show. It's on Netflix. I feel like Netflix might be something that most people have access to. But if you don't worry because we're going to be watching other things and discussing those things as well. Gwen says this was fun. Good job, Lyric. This was fun. I'm so glad you guys had fun. So yeah, definitely check out episode 2. See you next Friday. And yeah, thank you all so much. I'm gonna end it now. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.